I mean,
Wow.
play on Sunday.
I know, right?
The Chiefs used to play every Sunday at noon, and like last season, they didn't have a game at noon in Kansas City until like December.
when you don't want to have games in Kansas
Right?
City.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like, what in the world? Let's see.
He's
And they're
connecting.
doing like 5 or 6 games supposedly on Netflix too.
They're doing two.
Is it two?
That's
Okay.
it's two.
That's silly too.
I
Like,
know.
where's this thing at? Sports Center.
Unmute, Mr. Allotey. You gotta. I want to see your smiling, pretty face. Where the hell are
Where are
you?
those pearly whites?
Give me 1 second here.
There he is.
There he is.
Oh man.
It's a good
Oh
shine.
man.
Get a good shine on that head from the light, man. That's nice.
No more. It's all gone, man.
It's all right.
Wearing helmets all my life. Lost all my hair.
Still look like Tay Diggs. Aging well, my God.
What's going on, dude? How are you, man?
Trying. Yeah, man. Can't complain. You know.
Yeah,
just
good.
working and trying to raise teenagers and.
Oh my God! Are you serious? Teenagers or one teenager?
Yeah, man. 13. Well, 13 and 11. So
almost.
about to be
Oh my Lord.
That's right.
They're both in junior high school. So
that's nuts. That's absolutely crazy.
Yep.
You're
How about you guys?
You're still an officer of the law, right?
I am. Yep, I am.
Good. Where I don't even remember.
For this.
I don't even know where are you at? Where are you at right now? I couldn't even tell you. That's terrible. I know.
Training academy in Springfield.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Very cool.
Yeah. I've been back in Springfield for a little while now, so I'm assigned to the training academy right now and doing that. I've been doing that for the last 2-3 years. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's been good, man.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's awesome. You still what was that, Dom?
I would say they give you decent hours, or are you like 9 to 5? You're not
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
like
that's nice.
5:30 to 3:30.
So. Oh, nice. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So
are you do you get to go out to any SHG games while you're home, or are you
Yeah, I didn't go to too many last year. I think we maybe went to one.
Right.
And it was an early game. It was a blowout, so we ended up not staying very long.
Right.
I pretty much go to SHG games so my kids can hang out with their friends, pretty much.
that's what they're all about. I mean, Derek always tells stories about when he was a kid going to games and playing football in the side yard at Memorial Stadium. So
yeah,
that's what it's there for, right?
That's true. That's true. They got a little side yard there at SHG Stadium, and all those kids still run around and tackle each other all over the place, man. So
that's awesome.
Trying to get Schweska's Schweska's requesting this be sent to his email now. I guess the link on his phone isn't good enough. So
your boy's being difficult, Josh.
Yeah,
but you knew that already. You're well aware of that. So we gotta talk, man. Like obviously the semi-pro. How many years did Dan pester and bug the shit out of you before you finally decided to come out and play? Because I feel like we bugged everybody at some point.
I would say it was probably 2 years, a good 2 solid years.
Just nonstop.
Run into him at the bar and we'd be drinking and drunk or whatever. And he's like, man, you should come out and play for the Outlaws. And me and Schweska are kind of like, whatever, man. Like, we're done playing football. I don't want to do that anymore. And eventually he got us to show up. And
yeah. I remember, and Dom, you can talk to Josh's ability as well, but there he is. Hold on, I got to admit him. I remember the first game Josh showed up and played for the Outlaws. Dom, he had a pick on like the back line of the end zone and scored. So it was like what was our field? 60 yards with 10 yards end zone. It was like a 69-yard play. Jeez. That was like he did that, and we were like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. He's all right.
You can stay.
Yeah, you can stay. Yeah.
He picked me a few times, that's for sure.
Pat, put your tongue in your mouth.
On, gents.
Oh man, look at this guy. Man, neither of you guys have aged. Holy
no, you haven't. You guys both look the same.
Jesus.
I wish I felt the same.
That's all right. I just went for a walk around the block with my wife and kid, and my knee is killing me right now. So it's a fun times, good times being 42 years old, man. It's never ends.
Kind of look like Urlacher, Bus.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's not the first time I've gotten that.
Yeah, that do a double take. I was like, holy moly.
What's up, Mr. Schweska? How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a long time since I talked to either of you.
It's been far too long.
I talk to Josh all the time, but
yeah,
not much has changed, man. I mean, except for everything, right? Kids, whole 9 yards, marriage,
kids, marriage, jobs, all that stuff is different.
All that stuff.
You're not working.
I'm a lawyer now.
I think I was
a lawyer the last time we all talked.
No. The last time we talked, you guys still. Pat, I think the last time I talked to you, you still worked at Catch-22. Like, let's be honest, it's been a long time since I've talked to you. And Josh, you might have. I think I've seen you since you've been a police officer. Maybe you were in the academy or something, Josh. It's been a while.
Oh yeah,
it's been far too long. Yeah, no doubt.
A lawyer. What law do you practice, counselor? Where are you at? What's the focus?
I do public policy work, so I'm basically not basically. I'm a lobbyist.
Okay, man, that's awesome, Pat. Congrats, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Good stuff.
Can you have you had to get Dan out of any trouble yet, or
no, unfortunately not.
No, okay, that's good.
No, I'm not licensed in DC, so I wouldn't be of much help to him.
That's true. Yeah, that's guess. Yeah, you're Chicago, right?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Do you get down? We were talking to Josh a bit because obviously I found out he's still in Springfield or back in Springfield, and so we were asking if he got to any SHG games or anything. Have you ventured back down to the land of Lincoln to Central to Springfield to see anything or?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've been to an SHG game since they've started playing in their own stadium.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think the last SHG or probably really any high school game I went to, they were still playing a land fair, like the old days.
Yeah.
So,
well, both you guys know that is like turfed and redone and all the whole night. Well, Josh, you probably know, but Pat, that thing's like a mecca now. They've redone the whole thing at Memorial.
It's like 40 years overdue.
Yeah, no joke.
I think they did that.
Played on turf in junior high.
Yeah, so they turfed it. They redid the locker rooms. They redid the whole thing, Pat. It's pretty nice.
Who plays there? Who plays there now? Like, because doesn't Southeast play on their own field now too?
Yeah, so it's just Lanphier and Springfield High now.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sure at some point Springfield High will probably do because they turfed their practice field a long time ago. So I'm sure at some point they're going to probably try to do their own thing there, but who knows?
Yeah. 186 is doing like a big overhaul of like all the schools.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lanphier was the first high school to really get like a big makeover. I know they were in talks about doing something with Springfield, but
they're doing something in Springfield. Not as big as Lanphier, but they're doing some stuff. So, but
I always thought they should have played at that. I don't know, guys. Is that practice area that they have where they turf that? Is that what you're talking about? That has the view of the Capitol in the background?
At Springfield High, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a slick little stadium if they could, put something together on there.
Yeah, it's not big enough. It's kind of there's no room for stands, I should say, because that's where we did like freshman and JV games back in the day.
That's where they took the picture of Dan and I for the front page of the paper. Was on that field.
Was it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't even know it existed until that day.
Yeah, that's the old practice field. Yeah. Well, Pat, we were talking. Josh was just kind of telling us we were talking about how many years did it take for Dan begging and pleading for you guys to call. Josh said 2 years. I don't know if were you guys the package deal or did Dan work you guys separately? I can't even remember.
Well, at the time, I know before it was you and Dan.
Yeah,
it was just Dan, and. When we were like, anytime I'd see him downtown, he would try to get me to come out for the Outlaws. And I was like, man, what kind of rinky dink shit is this? I don't have really any interest in doing this. Like, and then you guys started talking to me about it and, kind of like telling me, how legit it is. And, there's some talent and that kind of stuff. And at the time, eventually Josh and I were living together. And so I think we kind of collectively just had a conversation like, hey, these bozos keep coming at us to come play football. And I was like, you know what? It sounds like, it's not like we're doing anything else that's super productive. So like, let's, I think Josh and I had a conversation where it's kind of like, let's go check it out. And if it's, if it's garbage, but what do we lose besides an evening to go see what it's all about? And then obviously stayed for a while after the first couple of workouts we went to.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys were, but you know what? I think you guys saw too, though. Like, and I don't want to speak for you guys, obviously, but like you saw it was fun. Like you saw, yes, we were rinky dink as shit. Like, let's be honest. Like we were beer league football with pads on, right? But like, what's the word I'm looking for? We treated it well. We put it up on its own little pedestal. Like we had some fun doing it too, and I think you guys definitely bought into that. And I mean, I know, Pat. I can remember. I got about a million stories from you playing with the Outlaws. And Josh, you were always just kind of a quiet guy that kind of kept to yourself a little bit. Obviously Pat was your boy, but you just sort of showed up and played and did your thing. But I mean, I can remember Pat, like, fuck. I remember. Do you remember we played that game against the Slaughter and you were pretty much like 3 sheets to the wind the entire game? Like you rode up on the bus like chugging Pedialyte, and like you were like, let's go. But we were talking about that with Dan. Like Dan could play that way. Like Dan could ball out like half hungover. That was just the best way he played.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I'm not advocating for this by any stretch.
Absolutely, no, of course not.
So I want to be clear about that, like a disclaimer. But so first off, in my terrible defense, Josh and I both worked at a bar that closed at 3 a.m.
Yeah, you guys all did. Half our team worked at Catch 22.
So then, you would kind of carry on the party after the bar closed. So you wouldn't get to bed till Lord knows what time in the morning. Then you have to get up and get ready to get on a bus to play a football game. So the upside of that is that you don't have time to like be nervous or overthink anything. You kind of just get out there and play. Right. And I think that worked to my advantage in more situations than not. Like you're certainly loose. Like I didn't really pull any muscles or anything. Just kind of like showing up, strapping it up and saying what the hell, like go out there and hit somebody.
Oh man, it was fun. I mean, like but again, you guys always, and I think part of that too is like, Pat, did you play college football at all?
I did not. No.
Okay, and Josh, I know you played at Milliken, so like, but both of you guys came from a program, like you came from SHG, obviously, where like you knew structure, you knew how to play the game. So it wasn't like some of these jamokes that we've talked about on here who came from like, I'm going to pick a high school and probably get yelled at for it, but like Girard High School, who we had a really good player from Girard, but one of those high schools where they were terrible and they just showed up and didn't know what the hell they were doing. So you guys at least had like some good knowledge and Josh, you being, you played at Milliken. So you knew the game anyways, and you weren't just showing up, putting on pads and wearing bike shorts to play football in. So
yeah, it was a good experience. My first experience with the Outlaws was when I was in high school. I think I was like in high school, maybe in college. And Christian Gripper, he went to SHG, played for the Outlaws back when it was like when they first like started, and he played for him for a couple of games. And I remember watching the practice being like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, that was those were interesting times for sure.
Yeah.
So I've only heard stories about like that pre-times before, Brent tells good stories about obviously kind of like the Buccaneers, the Bucks and all that stuff. Yeah. But I mean, when we started playing with the Outlaws, we talked about it before, we were like 45, 50 deep at practices. I mean, it was a good And you guys know Chris, obviously. Like, Chris wasn't going to run a raggedy practice. He was going to do it the right way. So we had legit 2-hour practices that first season with 11 man, where you kind of start you know where you're at. Like, it's not anything more than what it is, but you also look at it and be like, oh, this is a hell of a lot more organized than I thought it was going to be. And that was good for me coming from college football, and a lot of guys that played at that level, coming to that team. So it made up for when we got later on in our careers, when we would show up for with 4 people at practice, and Dan would just throw the ball around for a bit, and then we go home. So
yeah, no, back to your question, Tony, or whatever. That was like the noticeable thing for me when I first came out, because I think like what it did, like, first off, the first thing that like I really appreciate about were the guys, right? Like, that's what kind of kept you coming back initially, because when I first came out, and when we both first came out, it was still just kind of like in that kind of like off season drills, practice type of stuff, right? And that's not fun for anybody, right? Nobody likes practicing, right?
No.
So it was hard to judge like what the experience was going to be like, but having like a good set of guys that were fun to be around and go through that kind of stuff with. And to your point about like having Coach Lawson there, like he does a great job of making it structured and serious enough that, like, I don't want to do anything and go out and get my ass kicked, right? If I'm going to play anything, and that could be like a pickup game of basketball to semi-pro football, I want to win. That's my mentality. I think probably a lot of the guys' mentality on the team, right? Like, yes, this is fun. We understand that we're not all going to like go be playing in a Super Bowl anytime soon, but we're going to, because we're competitive. We want to win the game we're playing, no matter who's taking it, who's watching or who's not watching, or what people think of what the league is or anything like that. And I think Chris always did a great job of keeping like the structure, right? We still had practice and drills, and you kind of had to take it seriously, but not so seriously that it's like, I'm not looking for this, super heavy commitment. It was still light and fun, but like, I think we did a good job of like keeping it structured enough where we still like, we were able to put like a decent product on the field. And I don't think you can just show up and do that, right?
No.
So that struck me as like, okay, this is like, it like fit into like the right groove for me,
right?
So like that balance, which I always appreciated. So
right. No, that makes perfect sense, and that's kind of what I always appreciated that about that too. Kind of the same thing you were talking about, because I'm sure, I don't know, Dom, what, like, and we've talked about your practices before. Like, you guys had some structure. I mean, I remember the first couple of days of the Stallions when we were practicing at the Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club, and then Gold's Gym. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, there was definitely a ton of structure to that too, and that, I'm sure that probably traveled over once things got going.
Yeah, it was nice. Those first Stallion season, the actually having access to the convention center too. We would have, on game weeks, we'd have our practices in there, and SHG would always come in there. It was funny. Ken Leonard would always show up right after our practice with Bobby Brenheisen and like 5 receivers, and they'd be in there working out, in January, February. I'm like, is this legal? But yeah, sorry,
statute of limitations are gone now. It's okay. That's fine.
If anybody from SHG hears, that was 20 years ago. So
yeah,
but yeah, it was always pretty well structured. And then going back to the point you made about how both of those two guys were really quiet and humble, you have a very different opinion than I do from playing against them, because Pat would talk the entire game.
I never said Pat was humble. I never said Pat was humble.
And Allotey would talk a lot too, especially if he made a play on me. I would hear about it. Not only would I hear about the rest of the game, I'd hear about it the rest of the week. And then, anytime I'd be, even if I didn't throw to his side, I'd be like, yeah, look over here. I'd hear him talking over there. And so
no,
I learned my lesson early on that one. I stopped talking.
Pat was not humble. Pat loved to talk his shit. And I guess for me, Josh was always my teammate. So I never saw the other, I didn't know what he was chirping when he was out there playing DB or receiver. I just saw him as a teammate. Both, I would say this though, both great. Both of you guys were awesome teammates. Like, because I think because you coming from where you came from, and then you also knew, like, once the game was over, it was over. Once everything was done, it was done. It was time to have fun. And you guys would, help other guys out if needed. And I mean, we were watching a couple you know, I've got a couple old tapes, and Pat, when you were playing nose guard, you were always you would you were like scanning the offense, pointing what everyone should be doing, and then would put your hand down like right before the ball was snapped, like every time, because that was just what you did. And then obviously Josh Josh playing both ways. You never. I mean, shit. The one year, and we'll come back to talk more about it. But the one year, Josh, you played receiver, you played defensive back, and you kicked for us. So I don't know if you ever left. I don't know if you and you returned kick. So I don't know if you ever left the field, man. You were doing everything.
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. Well,
It was a good experience. It definitely sparked I guess not my interest, but my fire back into football again. And that kind of it's kind of what started me into the trying out for the Stallions and
right.
all that stuff. Because coming out of Milliken, I was supposed to go to a small school combine, do all that whole 9, and go through all that thing, and I never did. And then playing for the Outlaws kind of sparked all that again, and that's what kind of pushed me towards the Stallions. And then supposed to with what's that Bloomington team. I guess at the time they were called the Extreme.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I ended up not doing it. I shut it down after that. After that whole Stallions, that could be a 30 for 30. Man,
Yeah, but you started both ways.
League, playing for the Stallions. I was talking to so Pat Marler is now my brother-in-law. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
We were talking about. I was like, dude, you could do a 30 for 30 on that first professional Stallions season of all the drama and coaches getting their noses broken by kids and by adults.
But I think they still have some outstanding paychecks, don't they?
Probably.
Yeah.
They owe some people some money.
Pat, did you play? You played a game for the Stallions, didn't you? Didn't you come out for a kick?
I played one game after I got cut. I got cut initially.
Yeah.
After. Yeah, that was a weird process. So I was told different things by different coaches, but ultimately I was cut. I found out. Then when they were having trouble filling a squad, I was asked to come back and play that one. We played one game in the convention. I don't remember who we played in that game. I do remember that I kicked. I think it was St. Patrick's Day, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I kicked, and I'm pretty positive I broke my toe. It got blocked so horribly bad. I was trying. I think it was an extra point we were kicking, or I was kicking, and warm-ups and everything went well. And then, I mean, it was blocked worse than anything. I think I ended up kicking some kid in the face mask and just annihilating my toe on my kicking foot. And that was the start of a rough day in the convention center. I think for all of us, Dom, Josh, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was a rough day for all of us.
Yeah.
Josh, were you, and I guess I don't know this or I probably knew it, but it's been so long. Were you like on the roster the whole year? Like, did you try out, make the team right away, or were you okay? I didn't know if they had signed you after like week 1 or 2 or something.
Like early
practice. You did the whole thing.
We had that tryout at the convention center.
Okay.
We both went and made it from there.
Right.
No, I mean, now that I look back at it, I'm kind of surprised that I did make it. I mean, some of the dudes we had on that team played at Mizzou, played at all these Division I schools. A running back we had was like the all-time leading rusher from North Texas or something like that.
Yeah, Kev.
Played on the Chiefs for a little bit. Yeah, it was like something. So they had a lot of Winston Taylor. Like they had a lot of really good talent on that team. We just never really could put it together, and obviously the ownership wasn't all the best either. Stealing money.
You started that season
though.
But
yeah, it was
receiver and DB, I think, right? I mean, you played both.
I did.
Of the season. Yeah.
Was that the one, Dom? Were you talking about that before? You got a picture of you throwing a pass to him, or him catching a pass or something?
Yeah, he caught a pass in Miami Valley. They finally let me start in that game, and I was the whole bus ride there. I was like, I'm gonna throw to you like every play, and literally did. And he caught a pass it got hit like different times. I think a kid in the crowd hit it and he was on his back and ended up pulling it down, and it was a touchdown, and it was a pretty good side-by-side still frame of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I got that photo hanging up in my basement.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
It was a killer catch. Yeah. I mean, I think we lost that game by like 20.
Yeah.
But we scored like 50 or 60 though, because we were slinging, but
They were a pretty good team.
Yeah.
That was a long drive too.
Long. Yeah.
6-7 hour bus ride.
Yeah, that was not fun. And it wasn't even a real bus. Remember, it was like those old shuttles they had at hotels or airport shuttles. It was like
with no bathroom.
You remember that thing? Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, the bus
Oh,
ride
yeah.
home.
Yeah,
Bus
it was
ride home
janky.
rowdy. Yeah, it was a little rowdy.
Where it was going to break down or something.
Yeah, that was God Almighty.
We took a few of those. Pat, were you around the year the Outlaws when we went down to play the Peoria, and
Yeah.
Chris had ordered like one of those shuttle buses, like you were just talking about, Dom, and the company didn't have one, so they sent down like a stretched limo. So we drove to Peoria in like this big long like stretched limousine, and just it was like, what the fuck are we doing? And then I mean, obviously we had fun, but it was just like Chris was like shaking his head like, this is all I had, guys. Just ride in it and don't make a mess.
That's fantastic. I don't think I ever heard that.
We always had good buses for the Outlaws, though.
Yeah.
We did. He would always take care of us. Yeah.
Charter bus or like some kind of good legit bus that we could ride on.
Because Chris and Tommy used to always say they knew that if the dudes had a way to get there, they'd get there without having to drive their car. So they would always make sure that we had some sort of bus, and we'd always meet at Buffalo Wild Wings. And I'd always remember, because like for me now as a coach, still I haven't played semi-pro football since 2012. I am still, one of my biggest anxieties on game day is dudes showing up, and I'm talking about high school kids. I'm talking about now, like kids, like they're not going to not show up. But one of my biggest fears, just from semi-pro football, from 8-man especially, is like, who's going to show up today? Who's going to be here? Well, or like, hey, he said he was going to be here. Where is he? Or so that's like, that was such a huge anxiety bitch for me when we were playing, just because I knew, you guys played, Dom, too. Sometimes there's one dude. If one dude shows up, you're going to win. Doesn't matter what happens. If that dude shows up, you're going to be okay. And if that dude doesn't show up, it might be a dogfight. So it was always rough. Plus, we went to a game one year. The first year, we went to a game with 8, and that was not fun. Businger will tell some stories. He'll make fun of me for that one because I refused to play defense that game. I wasn't very good on defense, man. I wasn't very good on offense either, but I was definitely worse on defense. So I wasn't about to get out there and get fucking cracked or cut blocked or anything and lose my shit. But oh well.
We always had guys that we were worried about. Like there was multiple games, I won't throw any names out, where guys didn't show up because they were in the clink. That happened at least 4 or 5 times throughout the Stallions and Seminoles tenure at the eras of those two teams. So
we had, and I'm not going to name names on this one. So my first year, Pat, you and Josh wouldn't know about this, and Dom, you'll know. I'll tell you off air who I'm talking about. I'll tell all you guys off air who I'm talking about. But my first year playing with the Outlaws, we went to go play the Lafayette Lions in Lafayette, Indiana. And my father, who was a judge at the time in the state of Illinois, wrote a letter allowing a individual who had a low jack. He had a low jack, played all season with a low jack. And he wrote a letter saying that he gave authorization for this player to cross state lines to play in the football game. And we ended up winning that game. And so I don't know how my dad did it or why. I mean, I've asked, but so he wrote a letter to the state and said, this player is doing this. He's going to be with, these gentlemen from the National Guard. He's going to be with these gentlemen who are probably police officers at the time. And I authorize and allow this to happen. And that player was able to go play. So.
What about Dom? Did you guys ever have the opposite end of the spectrum, and I won't name names either. I think Tony and Josh, you probably will remember who this is. I know for a fact Dan would, because I think it's still chaps Dan's ass till this day if you bring it up. But have people quit like mid game.
Oh my God, my
They just-
remembrance. Yes.
They just walk away, and it's like, where the hell did this guy go?
Yeah.
And not only does he not show up for the rest of the game, just never shows up again. It's
Yeah.
like,
Was that
Game.
was that this running back, Pat? Who we every week we would say, hey, this guy's here. Was that guy?
yeah,
I remember that.
yeah.
And
I mean, this person was talented. Like, this was
Yes.
a talented player. Like, this guy was
Was
not a
this running
slouch
back
by any
from
stretch.
Jacksonville?
I was just gonna say I know who it is, probably.
Not Jacksonville, but
no.
different town.
a different Ville. But that was like a running joke all season, Pat. We were like, oh, is he here? Nope, not here.
Yeah, and because
Yeah,
I think it was like, I don't know if it was halftime or what at what point in the game it was. But I remember just like, because he and I would like bullshit, throughout like whenever we were often on field at opposite times, because I was a defense, he was an offense. But like, I was like looking for him, like, where did this guy go? And then like just literally never showed up ever again.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, that was the end of
I
it.
forgot about that. I think it was like in the middle of a drive or something too. Like we went to go to that certain package and we were like, he's gone. He just disappeared. You might have been, Pat. You might have even worn his number a couple times that season in remembrance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the year Pat wore a different jersey, I think, every week. Just
Close
because
to
he
it,
would
Wait,
he
what
would
year? What year was this?
This might have been 08.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember one of the games in 08. I don't remember which one it was. You'll probably remember this, Pat. We were playing you guys, and I don't think it was pretty early in the game. And somebody on our offensive line didn't realize how cool you and I were, that we were buddies. And you were talking quite a bit, and you popped me pretty good, but you didn't really it was just kind of like, you kept just shoulder checking me almost after every play, messing with me. And then finally it kind of escalated, and these guys were like ready to kill you. And I was like, it's all right, man. I know this guy. He's my buddy. Like, chill out.
I know who that. I remember that. I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
And I remember who the player was. I don't remember his name. He was one of the Stallions players I didn't really know. And I had to do that because thanks to Chris Reynolds, I didn't get in your face nearly as much as I would have liked. That guy was the toughest guy I went up against in NFL as a center. He was just very, very difficult to beat on any given play.
Yeah.
But I do remember that distinctly, because I was like, I gotta put some pads on Dom at some point. Like, at some point, I gotta let him know that I'm here, because I'm not doing a good job between the whistles. So
yeah, both of you guys I thought were my friends. Allotey tried to kill me a couple different times, so going low, like he tried to flip me and stuff. I'm like, God, man, come on, bro.
Well,
between the lines, we weren't friends.
Oh, I know. I remember one time he hit me pretty good. He's like, yeah, next time you'll slide or something like that. I was like, damn.
But Josh, I think we can agree, neither of us could hold a candle intimidating Salvo like our cat could that we had at our house.
Pussy.
I'll refrain from saying the cat's name because it's vulgar, but
don't even worry about it.
R.I.P. R.I.P. to that cat.
That cat was Hood.
Dom would come and sit in a like a rocking chair, and because like we were friends when we weren't playing. I was even friends when we were playing. I didn't give a shit. I didn't really get into the rivalry as much,
right?
Really as much as some people did. But like, he'd be like sitting in a rocking chair, and Dom's eyes would just never stop wondering. He'd always be like, "Where's the cat? Where's the cat? Where's the cat?"
First time I ever came to your guys' house, that thing came flying through the room and sucker punched me in the side of the head and then took off. And I was like, what the hell was that? And Josh was like, oh, that's Pussy. And I was like, what? Is it a jungle cat? Like, what is that thing? That cat was crazy. You had every justification to keep that on a swivel. Street cat, dude. Yeah, it was a Hood.
Whose cat was it officially? Who brought it home?
I don't remember how we got it, Josh. Did we?
It was a girl I worked with at the bank had a bunch of kittens.
Oh, okay.
You want a cat? I'm like, sure. Lo and behold, the cats that were given to us or given to people weren't ready to be given to anybody yet. They were still
right
young. So we were raising this cat.
A feral cat.
Basically a feral cat. And it was crazy. Like
Yeah.
That's
it would
hilarious.
walk the dog. It literally would
I'd
beat
say
my
it would go
dog.
after Boo. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
It went after the one time my dog ever came over to your guys' house. She probably never wanted to go back. Got smacked a couple times.
What was your dog's name back then, Dom? I was trying to remember the other day.
Lexi.
Lexi, that's right. Yeah. Because you got Lexi when you lived in that little apartment on
Oh, right, on Governor, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Lexi and Boo used to hang out back then.
It's true.
Yeah, they were buds.
Does your family still own that house over there off of over there by the
Williams.
park?
Yeah.
Williams.
Yeah, my
Okay.
grandma's still in there, man. You know, it's funny.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wheel her out of there. She's never leaving. But like the last summer, she started getting like random people because there's a pool in the backyard that are coming in off the back alley. What's the block behind? The block that was behind your guys, or
That was
between
on Williams, so that would have been
what was between your house and Williams, or right that first block. I can't remember. Ash maybe, or whatever it was.
Ashley was, I don't know, I'll think of it, but
People are coming down that alley. Yeah, they're coming
Yeah.
down that alley at like 1, 2 in the morning and hopping the fence and getting into like naked, fully naked, and jumping in her pool. And I'm talking like not kids, like 40, 50, 60-year-old people. And it's happening like nonstop. It's the wildest thing. So we keep telling her, you need to get out of that house, you know, or get a dog. But yeah, it's wild. She's
Or
still there.
a cat, or a psychotic cat.
Or a feral cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was your grandma's house, Dom. My bad. No, note to self.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Tony, because I can't keep the timeline in my head for a number of reasons. So when was the last kind of like official, legit Outlaws season, year, or whatever you call it? Like when did?
Oh man.
Stop?
So 2012, we won the league again. I don't think there was a team in 13-14. They played one season in 15, maybe, or maybe they played a season in 14, and then so I don't know if you guys all knew this. They combined with the Seminoles, so for a time it was the Sangamon County Outlaws, and they played like a season or 2 seasons doing that. I think it was Tommy and Nick. I don't know if Nick was involved. I know Tommy was involved, but it's been. I mean, that league is not what like Peoria still plays in that league. The Midwest Hawks, I think, still play in that league, who we played against. But yeah, it's been probably 7, 8 years since the Outlaws have been since anyone in Springfield plays, which is unfortunate because I don't think the Seminoles do anything either.
Yeah, there's no Springfield team.
Yeah,
there's no team at all, huh?
Nope. It's pretty sad. It's moved back down.
What's that?
What was that, Josh?
Springfield Foxes.
Yeah, so the Foxes played. That was 11 man. The Foxes played. They started in like 10 or 11, and they played to 15 or 16. But even that, they're done now too because they played at SHG. So it's so that league, Pat. I don't know if you ever got the history of like the 8-man league. So the 8-man league originally started up in like Macomb and was like Peoria area, and then we came around, and then it was like us, and then more southern teams and Quincy and Hannibal and all those teams, and then it's moved back to being like real exclusive, not exclusive, but like real Peoria heavy again. So it's. That's semi-pro football, and Chris tells stories about that all the time about just kind of teams come and go, unfortunately. But yeah, so yeah, there's been nothing in probably 2017 or 18 was the last time there was something in Springfield. I would bet.
Wild.
It feels, honestly, not to be cliche, like it doesn't feel like that long ago, but like
right.
I feel like at the time, and I know I only played for like a window in the grand kind of like the lifeline of the Outlaws, but it seemed like at the time when we all were there, when you were there with like the Stallions and or Seminoles, like it was a pretty healthy league at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
There were a number of teams. Look, not all teams were equal, right? There were certainly I would say tiers, but even like the top of the league was competitive with each other.
Yeah.
And there, like, no one seemed like they really had trouble fielding a team, at least the teams that were there. And when we showed up, when we would show up on Sundays, like everyone could field a team. I could put people on the field.
I would say probably because the first year the Stallions was 06, right? Or right, Dom?
Yeah, 06, yeah. I think that was the
06.
first year you guys played too, right? Pat and Josh.
Yeah, that would have been,
Yeah. 06, yeah, would have been the first year we played.
Yeah.
So I would say Pat 06, 07, 08, 09, probably 010. It was like it was yes, that was like the glory days, like because there was, I mean, in 08 there were probably 10 to 12 teams, and then there were always, kind of 8 at a minimum, and then 11, 12, 13 it kind of started, a couple teams dropped out, and then I mean the last year we played in I guess it was 13. The last year we played, there was actually two different leagues. So there was the 8FL and then there was the M8FL or whatever, and so it was the Outlaws, Quincy, Hannibal, the St. Louis Stars, and a team in Pekin, and then the other league was like the Seminoles, the Tazewell Tigers, the Midwest Hawks, the Peoria Punishers, like a lot more of this Peoria teams again. So yeah, there was that, and again, it's split because guys were getting in their own feelings and egos got in the way, and he said, she said, and all that stuff. So it's split for all the wrong reasons when it still could have been a damn near 12 to 15 team league at that point. But, again, that's semi-pro. That's what happens. But yeah, it was those couple of years. It was good. And I mean, and a lot of that too, and I don't want to talk too much, but a lot of that too was like guys like you guys coming and playing, and guys like Dom and guys like Dan and I, where we had experience playing football. We weren't JV bench warmers who just wanted to go out and play. Like, we all played the game of football. We all knew the game of football, and we all played at a high level where it brought the competitiveness up, and teams you had to get a Quincy Spartans that had half their roster from Quincy University and the other half their roster from Knox College. Like, you had to get those guys. The Bushnell team, all those dudes came from Monmouth College, so you had to find those teams and find those players, or else you're going to get your ass kicked. Honestly,
yeah. There is. I mean, with a lot of those teams, like obviously the Springfield teams, but those, like the teams you just mentioned, there was a lot of talent on those teams.
Yeah,
and I think you could tell. I mean, like the games were good. Then you have the flip side. Like, when I don't remember what team this person was on. It was early on, one of the first few games I played, and I was still kind of having that, like, oh shit, what did I get myself into conversation in my head. But dude had on blue jeans, like
Mid-state. Had to be Mid-state. Mid-state Thunderbirds.
It was either Mid-state or Jacksonville.
It was. I was gonna say Jacksonville, yeah.
And they had on. I don't even know where they got these shoes. They were like white 1970s baseball shoes, like patent white leather shoes with the jeans on. And if it weren't for the helmet and the shoulder pads and the homemade jersey, you would have thought this guy was like going to dance at Saturday Night Fever. That's what he looked like. He had like these bell-bottom jeans with like white pants. I remember just thinking, like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, this can't be for real. And sure as shit, guy lines up, like, I think he played like safety or corner or something.
Oh,
and dude was out there the whole game long, to his credit, I guess. Or maybe, I don't know if it was to his credit or not, actually. But jeans and like these shoes that I'm like, you had to find these at the Goodwill or something. I don't know where you get shoes like that.
I always knew, dude. I always knew if I got up there for the first play and the nose guard was wearing basketball shorts, I always was like, oh, it's going to be an easy day today. Like, I'm okay. I don't have to worry about this guy kicking my ass.
Or high top Air Force Ones.
I don't remember Air Force Ones, but yeah, we saw some wild shit. That's for sure.
Yes.
God, jeez. Yeah, I mean, Mid-State. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak disrespectfully of Mid-State, but boy, they had some trash balls on that team.
I always liked the dudes who would take like, and this is the high school anal guy. I always liked the guys who would take a face mask from one helmet, like a completely different style of helmet, and put it on that other helmet. Like I always liked those guys. I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, just go get a youth or the dudes that wore like youth helmets or like youth shoulder pads. Like that shit drove me nuts. Like they get out there and they'd have shoulder pads that would barely like Michael Bennett when he played for the Seahawks. Like,
Oh yeah.
buddy, what are you wearing?
Those guys, Dom, I don't know if it was the same for you guys. I'm sure it was. Maybe it was just me. I did tend to draw this out in people, but like those Mid-State Steel guys talked a lot of shit for as terrible as they were. That's the one thing I'll never forget being like, you guys are getting dog walked and you're like you're still talking shit. I'm like, I guess that's admirable. I don't know.
That's because they were all river rats from Peoria. That's all they know how to do.
Dude, all of those teams were that way. Yeah, they didn't. I guess they couldn't see the scoreboard, but yeah, Mid-State Thunderbirds were bad about it. Tazewell, I like a lot of those guys, but they talked a lot. They probably talked the most, and I don't think I ever lost to Tazewell. And boy, you would have thought they were beating us every time we played them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even like.
Sorry, who was the team that wore like the powder blue jerseys and then like the dark helmets? I forget the name of that team.
That was the Chargers.
Illinois Chargers.
Chargers.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah, they had that one kid. I mean, they had a couple good players. I remember the one though. He played like everything. Honestly, he played like kind of like an H-back / tight end type role.
Kid.
Jamel Ward.
That's what it was.
Yeah, he was good, man. Yeah. He was a stud.
We were just talking about him last week. Yeah, because he played for the 11-man team up there for a while, and he came down and played for the Foxes. That dude was a ball player, man.
Yeah,
he could play.
You could tell like with that team, their particular setup, and there are a number of teams like this. They were like the entire game plan was like, get this dude the ball.
Yeah,
just like get this dude the ball. Like that's it. Like it starts and ends there in terms of like the game planning, which always showed up. Like going back to the point you made, Tony, like earlier on, where like I'd come to the line and like always point at stuff. I think it's because I was the only guy on the defensive side of the ball that ever went to film sessions.
I'm sure at Tommy's house.
Yeah, which is because I don't want to burst anyone's like mind's eye image of me, but I'm not the most athletic guy. I'm not the most physically gifted person on the face of the planet. So I always had to like watch film and like try and use my brain as much as I could. But that always like came out on film like right away. It was like, okay, I know what this guy's game plan is, and it's to get this one particular person football, and that's it.
Pat, you're pretty sneaky athletic. I have film of you somewhere of you catching a tipped interception and racing down the sideline. I have that somewhere. I'll have to find that. That was. I tell you what, when you could get moving, man, it was hard to take you down. You were a bowling ball out there. So
I remember that. That was at Rotary against Quincy,
yeah.
I think.
Yes, it was Quincy. Yeah. You were talking about Chris Reynolds and giving him his much due respect. I'm glad I never had to block you, Pat, because you would have. Knowing me and knowing you, I would have tried to fight you like every snap, because you would have been like, I would have looked at you and been like, oh, I'll be okay. Like I can hang with this guy. And then you would have just talked nonstop and it would have just driven me nuts. And I would have tried to punch you. So I'm so thankful I never had to block you in an actual game, because that would have been bad.
That certainly was part of it. And you reminded me, that reminds me, there's a lot of why I talk too, is like just to confuse the other team. Like because this is a league in which you can do that. Like it's just like it is or was a league in which you could do that. I forget who we were playing. It might have been Tazewell. I think that it was like the orange jerseys. I think it might have been Tazewell, where I recognized something that they were doing and I called it out, and you heard like their tackle be like, "He knows," like, and he's like down in his mouth, like. And I was like, "Oh shit, I know." Like I was just trying to mess with you.
Yeah, they were always good for that kind of stuff. Those were always fun times when like. And Chris was great for that. We were talking about Chris doing that stuff too. Chris like knew all of everyone's like little things. Like he knew. I remember when we were playing the Seminoles one year, Dom, and he knew. I think it was. I hate to pick on Carlos Perry, but it was Carlos was still kind of coming into his own. But he knew if the ball was thrown to him, if you yelled really loudly, he'd drop it. And so I just remember Carlos getting the ball on our sideline, and the whole sideline just going like ah, and he dropped it, and it was like, all right, well, we know what's his game's done. He's finished for the rest of the day now. So, but again, that was the beauty of it. That was the fun of it, because you could do those things and no one really knew what was happening.
Little quirks, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat always had. I remember the few times I got to play against Pat, he always had that smirk on his face too. He'd be laughing, and
that's because he was drunk.
He was just trying to get under. He was just getting under people's skin and having a good time.
We were telling the story. Dan, I don't know if you listened to Dan's episode, Pat, but he was telling the story about when we were up at Quincy, and you were standing on the corner because the gates were locked, no shirt, your pants on, barely tied, cigarette in your mouth, probably half cocked still, just standing there, and this is semi-pro football at its finest right now. And then I think that also was the game you couldn't get your pants untied, and we had to it took 3 of us to untie your pants. The knot was so triple, quadruple knotted that nobody could get it undone. Again, semi-pro football.
I was probably singularly focused on them not coming off. What was that pregame or postgame?
That was pre. The only postgame, and I don't mean to pick on you, Pat, but it's stories of love, as you most know. The only postgame story I remember of Pat Schweska is 2007, after we won the championship, going to 4 seasons, and you falling headfirst into a bush, breaking the championship trophy. That's the only post-game Pat Schweska story I remember.
That was an interesting night. That was just the beginning of that evening.
I know. That was a long night, and then we had a good day the next day. I remember Businger, Dan, and I went out for Chinese buffet the next day, and we're probably still drunk and drank more at the Chinese buffet. So it was good times.
Who did you guys play in that game? I don't remember that. I mean, I
Macomb, yeah.
That was the year they beat us. They beat us 61-6 in week 3 of the regular season.
Wow.
And then we ended up beating them 53-52. Jared Powell deflected a pass with no time left for us to win the game.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we started the party.
That was that Macomb, not that game. We were playing at Macomb. I don't remember what year it was. Tim Jones was playing. It might have been 2006. It might have been the first year we were out there.
Yeah.
But you remember Tony, because you used to keep the stats. So remember it was Tim Jones, Cody Yonker, and myself on the defensive line, and we were rushing. I somehow deflected a pass and caught it and intercepted at the line of scrimmage, and it got called back because Tim Jones got a fucking hands to the face penalty per normal Tim Jones.
Yeah.
And I remember coming over to the sideline and being like, Tony, you're counting that interception. Counting the stats, man. I don't give a shit about that. It was called back on the field.
I do remember that. I probably counted it.
Myself. Huh?
Damn.
I said I probably still counted it. I'll have to look in the stats. I think I counted it.
Damn hands to the face penalties in the air.
I know.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, that was we talked about, Dom. We talked about going to Quincy and playing with those refs. That was going to Macomb was just as bad. I'm sure you remember. Those dudes were they were brutal.
They were
the refs there.
Those guys were homers like crazy, man.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's where we played in the 06 championship game.
Oh, that's right. In the cornfields.
Yeah, with that Macomb with their refs. That was a lot of fun.
That was a close game too, wasn't it? Or was that?
We lost 44-25.
Okay.
We didn't have George because he had gotten deployed.
He got deployed, right?
And then that morning we were missing Swick for whatever reason. Swick wasn't able to make it. I don't remember what the story was, and we were missing, I think, 2 other starters on defense, and I think Kevin Gade was out that game too.
Really?
And I mean, no excuse, but yeah, we got beat. I mean, they played better than us. I think, the week before beating you guys, I mean, we blew our load. That was the championship, on Mother's Day.
I forgot we lost to you guys in
the convention center.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Mhm.
Was that
yeah.
the one where we got all the bad press?
Yeah.
And Coach Leonard, remember Coach Leonard told us, Josh, he's like, you guys shouldn't be messing around with this. That was like the only game he came out and watched that game, and there was all the.
Was there a fight though?
Yeah.
There wasn't like any, like, I don't think anyone threw punches, but it was
like
just, it was heated.
fight, like a football fight. You know what I mean? Like,
It was heated.
But remember, wasn't it on the cover of SJR or something? Like, they have like some corny, like byline.
Outlaws Circus.
Yeah, Brent.
That's what Outlaws AND Circus. Yeah, you remember that. Yeah, okay.
Brent has it. Brent's got all that shit. He showed us. He's got all that shit like framed and laminated. He kept like everything.
Well, and they wrote an article like every day that following week about the game, which was wild. I mean, tons of coverage. But yeah, Robert Burns was not a fan.
No,
really went after us. But yeah, that was the first time I played against you guys actually, and I remember because you guys started like middle of the season, right? You didn't play the whole season that year with them, did you?
No.
Yeah, because when we played the first time, you guys weren't on the team yet. And I remember Pat, the first couple series, I was like, who is this fucking guy that keeps talking? I've never seen this guy before. I didn't know who he was. And he just kept going and going the whole game. And between him and Helton, Troy was going on and on with Dalby that whole game. And
I was going to say, I took a lot of my cues from Troy.
Yeah,
he was talking a lot that game with Troy Dalby. That was pretty funny. Those two were going.
Yeah, Troy knew how to get people going too.
Yeah, that was a wild game. It was a good game. I mean, it was. I think.
Didn't we lose a player the week before? Like we had a running back that was supposed to play, right?
I don't.
We had a different running back that game. Yeah, I feel like we had somebody else was playing running back whole season for us, and they were doing really well, and then we didn't have him that game.
I think honestly, I can't
remember who it would have been.
I think we went into that game.
Somebody was like older.
Was that the Lamar's Fortune year?
No. He was the year after. I think that was the
he played that year, but he was like
I think honestly, I think we didn't know how to play in the dome, or not the dome, in the convention center. Like you look back at that game, like we tried to do too much, and we were a running team. Like that was who we were built around. Like I remember we tried watching that film a couple weeks ago with Dom and Brent and Pickett, or just Dom and Brent and I, and it was like every snap, we as the Outlaws had like a fullback and a tailback, and every snap Dom was 7 yards deep behind the center with 4 wide. So it was just it wasn't built to our style of game, and we just didn't do well. Did Pat? I know you came up. We talked about it before. You came up and played the Slaughter game. Josh, did you come play with us that game?
I did. So I was playing with the Stallions, and then I think that was like that whole debacle at practice, and some got broken and some stuff like that. And then we didn't play the following week or following couple of weeks, and the Outlaws had stepped in to play the Slaughter. And I think Pat maybe was like, "Hey man, do you want to we're playing the Slaughter. Do you want to play?"
I kicked.
Yeah, why not?
Remember they had kicking.
Played them early in the season.
Yeah,
we got hammered.
That was in their new arena too, though, wasn't it? They have a pretty nice, brand new.
It was super nice.
Yeah.
Playing that new arena.
Did you come to that, Dom?
I didn't come to the game, but I knew they had a new arena, and I'm sure their turf was way better than what we had.
I think you helped. You helped though.
I came to practices that week. Yeah,
I remember you talking. I remember us sitting and talking with you about some stuff about because like we were. Again, Josh, you had played all year, and Pat, you played a little bit, but like, I just remember early on in that game, one of the corners taking Carlicker and just burying him in the wall, and we were like, oh shit, like this is not going to be good. And it was just, and again, we got homered a bit because like we scored we actually scored that game, Dom. I don't know if you knew this. Bubba scored, Cody scored on a tackle eligible, and they called it back because it was illegal formation, and we were like, but he signaled to the ref, like he said, like eligible everything, and so we got kind of had Cody scored, I think the final score would have been 63-12 instead of 63-6. So it wasn't that great, but that was
They were
fuck.
they were a good team. I think if I remember right, I mean they came. I had a front row seat for most of the games. They came to Springfield early on in that season and beat the shit out of us.
Yeah.
And then because Steve McMichael was their coach, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mongo.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I know they had a number of
Michael's the
U of I
coach.
guys on that
Yeah.
team that played at U
Winston
of I.
Taylor.
Winston was on that. Yeah, Winston was on that team.
Winston went to
was
Chicago
running
after that.
back
I didn't
on
know
that
that.
team.
Yeah,
Who was
I
it?
remember that.
So
Who was running back?
it was Winston Taylor's brother.
Oh, JR. Yeah, JR. Yeah.
Who was huge. Yeah.
Winston obviously didn't play, but yeah, he was a big boy too.
Yeah.
And he just ran the ball all over. I remember talking to Dan during that game, and he was like trying to come up with these plays and what we can do to I'm like, dude, that's not gonna work, man. It's not gonna work. You have to literally catch and throw. You cannot hold the ball. You can't roll out. You can't do any of it. You got to catch and throw, man, or else
Right.
it won't work.
Right. Yeah, it was. God, that was brutal.
They kept
just
calling me
remember-
Charlie Brown that game. I could never figure out why. I still to this day don't know why they kept calling me Charlie Brown.
You don't know why they call you Charlie Brown? Seriously? Have you
No.
never seen Charlie Brown? What he looks like?
I mean, his cartoon character.
I mean, I see a resemblance. They talk so much shit to us on the sideline. I do remember that. They were like, "Are you guys even a football team?" We were just like, "Oh, today, no, we're not. This is embarrassing."
Kind of.
Yeah, a little bit. I do remember though, and I can't remember if we talked about this on the pod or not, Dom, but they took care of us after the game. Like Mongo came in the locker room and thanked us, and like they fed us after the game for the bus ride home. Like they treated us very well for having just completely rammed us.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Yeah, when they played us in Springfield, who actually was our quarterback that game, Tony, was Derek DeBoeuf. Remember him from Pekin?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't Google that name.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, he played one game for us, and Mongo tried to sign him after the game. But that was just another, they've got that 30 for 30 on Tom Brady about all the guys that got drafted ahead of Tom Brady, and you could probably do one about all the guys Kevin Gade tried playing at quarterback before he finally
before Tom Salvo. Yeah, right.
Before I finally got in.
There's at least 4 or 5.
It's like 7.
Is it more?
I still remember Josh and I came to practice one day, and they just signed that kicker from Miami Valley the week before. You remember that? And they're like, "This is our quarterback this week." And I was like, "You were like, man, they're gonna play a kicker over you." I was like, "Yeah, I know. This is great. This is my life."
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun times. So.
All right. Well, as
we're messing around on that quarterback.
Dude, yeah, that whole season was a train wreck. So.
Well, as Brent always says, we're coming up on an hour here, so we're gonna try to wrap this up. So appreciate you boys coming on. It was awesome talking to you guys. Like, to see you guys and catch up is fantastic. Glad to see you guys both doing so well. I know if I ever need law help, Pat, I'm calling you first because you'll be able to help me out. And Josh, glad to see you doing so well down in Springfield, man, and keep it up, boys. Really, really great having you guys on.
Yeah, tell Trish and Sue I said hello.
Thanks for having us, guys.
We keep tabs on
All right, boys.
social media as well. So,
all right, guys. Take care. We'll see y'all.
Bye.
See us when you're in Springfield.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, guys.
See you guys.
See ya.